They told us grains are the foundation of a healthy diet. Whole grains, complex carbs, fiber-rich, heart-healthy, natural. But what if I told you that's not the whole truth? Hidden behind that label of wholesome and nutritious is a story that no one is telling seniors. A story that matters deeply if you are over 60. Because the grains most of us eat every single day, the ones sitting in our pantries right now, the ones our doctors have never warned us about, may be quietly accelerating the very things we fear most. Inflammation, joint destruction, blood sugar chaos, memory decline, cardiovascular damage. And here is the part that should stop you cold. A study published in the Journal of Gerontology and Geriatric Research found that specific grain compounds consumed regularly by adults over 60 elevated inflammatory markers by more than 50% in just 4 weeks. Not months, 4 weeks. And yet these same grains are still being marketed as health food for seniors. Today, we are going to expose the 4 grains you need to remove from your kitchen and reveal the 4 grains that could genuinely change your health, your energy, your joints, and your mind after 60. Number 1 on the danger list is probably in your bread box right now. And number 1 on the good list helped one of our patients get out of a wheelchair, something his doctors told him would never happen. Everything you hear in this video is grounded in peer-reviewed science and decades of senior nutrition research. We are not here to scare you. We are here to give you the truth, so you can make better choices starting today. But before we begin, I have 2 questions for you. First, what grains do you eat most often? Bread? Rice? Oatmeal? Second, have you noticed bloating, stiffness, or fatigue after eating? Tell us in the comments. We read every single one and reply with personalized tips. Now, let's start with the grains that are silently doing you the most damage. The 4 grains you must eliminate. Grain number 4 to avoid. Oats. The breakfast trap that's triggering inflammation in seniors. This one is going to surprise a lot of people. And I understand if your first reaction is disbelief. Oats? Oatmeal? The thing every cardiologist recommends? Yes. And here is why this is so important to understand. Oats themselves are not inherently evil. But the oats that 99% of seniors are actually eating, instant oats, flavored oat packets, quick oats, are a completely different product from what clinical research actually endorses. And even whole, minimally processed oats carry a hidden danger for a large portion of the senior population that almost nobody talks about. First, let's talk about what most oats actually are by the time they reach your bowl. Instant oats and quick oats have been pre-cooked, rolled ultra-thin, and processed at high heat. This dramatically increases their glycemic index, the speed at which they convert to sugar in your bloodstream. While whole rolled oats have a glycemic index around 55, which is moderate, instant oats come in at 83, putting them in the same blood sugar danger zone as white bread. For a senior whose insulin sensitivity is already reduced with age, that spike matters enormously. A 2021 study published in Diabetes Care found that seniors over 65 who consumed high glycemic breakfast foods showed significantly elevated post-meal blood glucose levels compared to middle-aged adults eating the same food. The aging pancreas responds more slowly, which means blood sugar stays elevated longer, and sustained high blood sugar is one of the primary drivers of nerve damage, vascular inflammation, and cognitive decline. But there is a second issue with oats that is far less discussed. Oats contain a compound called avenin, a protein structurally similar to gluten. For the estimated 20 to 30% of older adults with undiagnosed non-celiac gluten sensitivity, a condition that becomes more common with age as gut lining integrity declines, avenin triggers the same inflammatory cascade as gluten itself. Chronic, low-grade gut inflammation, leaky gut, systemic inflammation that shows up as joint pain, brain fog, and fatigue. One of our patients, Diane, was a 71-year-old retired accountant. She had eaten oatmeal every morning for 30 years. She believed she was doing everything right, but she came to us with stubborn inflammation in her hands and knees, persistent bloating after breakfast, and what she described as a mental fog that lasted until noon every day. Her doctor had attributed it all to arthritis and aging. When we did a full nutrition audit, the oatmeal was the first thing we flagged. We removed it and replaced her breakfast with our #1 good grain, which we'll cover shortly. Within 3 weeks, the morning bloating was gone. Within 6 weeks, the joint stiffness in her hands improved so significantly she was back to playing piano, something she had stopped 2 years earlier. Oats are not the villain for everyone. But if you are over 60, especially if you experience morning bloating, joint stiffness, or sluggish energy after breakfast, you owe it to yourself to take oats out of the rotation for 4 weeks and pay attention to what changes. Grain number 3 to avoid: white rice. The silent blood sugar bomb destroying senior metabolisms. White rice is one of the most widely consumed foods in the world. In many cultures, it is a staple at every single meal. And for centuries, it was a relatively harmless source of carbohydrates for active people who burned through energy quickly. But here is the problem. After 60, we are not those people anymore. Metabolic rate declines with age. Muscle mass, which is the primary tissue responsible for absorbing glucose from the bloodstream, decreases steadily after 60. Insulin sensitivity drops. And the result is that a food that may have been perfectly fine for your body at 40 becomes metabolically dangerous at 70. White rice has a glycemic index between 72 and 87, depending on the variety and how it is cooked. That is firmly in the high glycemic category. When you eat a bowl of white rice, your blood glucose rises sharply within 30 minutes, demanding a surge of insulin. Over time, for aging bodies that can no longer regulate this process efficiently, this pattern drives insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, visceral fat accumulation around the organs, and damaged blood vessel walls. A landmark study published in the British Medical Journal following over 350,000 participants found that for every large serving of white rice consumed daily, the risk of developing type 2 diabetes increased by 11%. Among Asian populations where white rice consumption is highest, the risk was even more pronounced. But perhaps most alarming for our audience, a 2020 study in the Journal of Nutrition, Health and Aging found that older adults with diets high in refined grains, including white rice, showed significantly faster cognitive decline over 5 years than those with lower refined grain intake. Your brain is extremely sensitive to blood sugar fluctuations. Every spike is followed by a crash. And during those crashes, concentration falters, mood dips, and memory retrieval slows. Do that twice a day, every day, for years, and the cumulative cognitive cost is real. We had a patient named George, a 74-year-old retired chef who had cooked with white rice his entire career. He came to us with fatigue after meals, difficulty concentrating in the afternoons, and a fasting blood glucose level that was creeping toward pre-diabetic territory. He was not overweight. He exercised. He cooked all his own meals. But rice was at the center of every plate. We worked with George to gradually replace white rice with black rice, which is on our must-eat list, and to reframe his cooking around different grains. 3 months later, his fasting glucose had normalized. His afternoon energy slump vanished, and he told us, with some disbelief, that he felt sharper in the kitchen than he had in years. If white rice is a staple in your diet, you do not need to eliminate it overnight. But you need to reduce the portion size, pair it always with fiber and protein, and begin exploring the alternatives we'll share shortly. Grain number 2 to avoid: corn. The hidden inflammatory trigger disguised as wholesome food. Corn is one of the most misunderstood foods in senior nutrition. When most people think of corn, they picture a cob at a summer barbecue. Something natural, colorful, even festive. What they do not picture is the true form in which most corn enters the American diet. Highly processed, stripped of fiber, and hidden in thousands of packaged products under names like corn syrup, cornstarch, corn flour, and modified cornstarch. Let's start with the most dangerous version: refined corn products. Corn chips, corn tortillas made from masa, cornbread, corn cereals, popcorn loaded with additives, and virtually any packaged food that lists cornstarch or corn syrup as an ingredient. These are high-glycemic, pro-inflammatory foods that behave in the body very similarly to white rice, but with an additional layer of damage. Here is what makes corn particularly harmful for seniors. Corn is extraordinarily high in omega-6 fatty acids, specifically linoleic acid, and contains almost no omega-3s. As we discussed, the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in the diet is one of the most powerful levers of systemic inflammation. When corn and corn-derived products dominate the diet, that ratio can skyrocket, creating a biological environment that promotes joint inflammation, arterial stiffness, and neurological damage. A 2023 study in Nutrients found that older adults with the highest intake of refined corn products had significantly elevated levels of interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein, two of the most reliable markers of systemic inflammation. Elevated IL-6 in particular is associated with accelerated muscle loss, cognitive decline, and cardiovascular disease in seniors. But there is another layer. Most corn grown commercially in the United States is genetically modified, and roughly 90% is treated with glyphosate-based herbicides. Emerging research, including a 2021 review in Environmental Health Perspectives, suggests that glyphosate may disrupt the gut microbiome, particularly in older adults whose gut diversity is already reduced, contributing to increased intestinal permeability, immune dysregulation, and mood disruption. We had a patient named Clara, a 68-year-old grandmother who prided herself on cooking from scratch. But her pantry was full of corn tortillas, cornbread mix, and corn-based breakfast cereals she ate every morning. She came to us with chronic lower back stiffness, recurring sinus inflammation, and a fatigue so persistent she described it as carrying a weight on her chest. Her inflammatory markers were elevated. Her gut function was compromised. We removed all refined corn products and replaced them with grain alternatives she found equally satisfying. Buckwheat pancakes instead of cornbread, barley soup instead of corn-based dishes. Within 1 month, her sinus congestion cleared significantly. By 6 weeks, her back stiffness was noticeably improved. Her energy, she told us, felt like it had been plugged back in. Corn on the cob in whole form, consumed occasionally, is a very different conversation. But refined corn products, corn flour, corn syrup, corn starch, have no place in a senior's daily diet. Grain number 1 to avoid: refined white flour. The number 1 grain destroying senior health from the inside out. Of all the grains on our danger list, this one is the most pervasive, the most insidious, and the most damaging. And it is likely the grain you consume more of than any other without even realizing it. Refined white flour is in your bread, your pasta, your crackers, your muffins, your cookies, your pancakes, your sandwich wraps, your dinner rolls. It is in the coating on your chicken, the thickening in your soup, and the base of most sauces. It is everywhere. And for people over 60, it is quietly one of the most destructive things you can put in your body every single day. Here is what happens when wheat is refined into white flour. The bran, the outer layer containing fiber, is removed. The germ, the inner core containing B vitamins, vitamin E, healthy fats, and minerals, is also removed. What remains is almost pure starch. No meaningful fiber, no significant vitamins, no protective compounds. Just a rapidly digestible carbohydrate that sends blood sugar soaring and delivers almost nothing of nutritional value in return. When you eat white flour products, your body converts them to glucose faster than almost any other food. The glycemic index of white bread is between 70 and 85, virtually identical to straight table sugar. That means every piece of toast, every dinner roll, every bowl of regular pasta is delivering a sugar hit to your aging bloodstream. Over time, this destroys insulin sensitivity, feeds visceral fat, inflames blood vessel walls, and drives the kind of chronic, low-grade systemic inflammation that accelerates every major disease of aging. And the damage goes deeper than blood sugar. A growing body of research points to white flour as a direct driver of gut microbiome disruption. A 2022 study in Cell Host and Microbe found that diets high in refined grain products were associated with significantly reduced gut microbial diversity in adults over 65, and specifically depleted the beneficial bacteria species associated with reduced inflammation, healthy cognition, and strong immunity. Less microbial diversity means a weaker gut barrier. A weaker gut barrier means more inflammatory compounds leak into the bloodstream, and more systemic inflammation means faster aging of every organ, including the brain. One of the most powerful cases I can share is a patient named Raymond, a 77-year-old retired postal worker who came to us for help with what he called all-over deterioration. Arthritis in his knees so severe he used a walker. Cholesterol and blood pressure both requiring medication. Mental fog so thick his family had started asking whether he should live alone. His diet was built almost entirely on white bread, white pasta, and crackers. Foods he had eaten comfortably his entire adult life. We completely rebuilt his grain consumption over a period of 3 months, replacing every white flour product with whole grain alternatives, starting with the grains on our must-eat list. The transformation was not instant, but it was undeniable. By month 2, he had reduced his walker use significantly. By month 3, His physician had lowered one of his blood pressure medications, and his son called us to say that his father was having full, sharp conversations again at the dinner table, something the family had quietly grieved losing. White flour is not food in any meaningful nutritional sense. It is empty energy wrapped in habit. And for anyone over 60, breaking that habit and replacing it with real, nutrient-dense grains is one of the single most powerful health decisions you can make. Now, let's talk about what you should be eating instead, because this is where it gets genuinely exciting. The 4 grains you must eat daily. Grain number 4 to eat: black rice, the ancient grain that protects your brain and blood vessels. Most people have never eaten black rice. They've heard of brown rice, maybe even red rice. But black rice, also called forbidden rice because in ancient China it was reserved exclusively for the emperor, is in a completely different nutritional category from any rice most seniors have encountered. And the reason it was so prized may come down to what we now understand about one specific compound: anthocyanins. Black rice gets its dramatic dark color from an extraordinarily high concentration of anthocyanins, the same class of powerful antioxidants found in blueberries and blackberries, 2 of the most celebrated brain-protective foods in the world. Gram for gram, black rice contains more anthocyanins than blueberries, and unlike most superfoods, it delivers this antioxidant payload alongside a full serving of complex carbohydrates, fiber, and protein. Here is what anthocyanins do in the aging brain and body. They cross the blood-brain barrier and reduce oxidative stress directly inside neural tissue. They suppress inflammatory signaling pathways, particularly NF-kappa B, one of the master switches for chronic inflammation. They protect the integrity of blood vessel walls, reducing the risk of microvascular damage in both the brain and the cardiovascular system. And they have been shown to enhance insulin sensitivity, making them directly relevant to the blood sugar problems that white rice creates. A 2022 study published in Nutrients followed adults aged 60 to 75 who replaced white rice with black rice for 12 weeks. Results showed a significant reduction in fasting blood glucose, lower LDL cholesterol, improved antioxidant capacity in the blood, and self-reported improvements in energy and cognitive clarity. Participants did not change anything else about their diet, just the rice. One of our patients, a 72-year-old woman named Pearl, had been eating white rice at lunch and dinner most of her life. Her blood sugar was borderline high. She complained of mental fatigue every afternoon. After we introduced black rice as her primary grain, cooked the same way, eaten in the same dishes, she noticed changes within 2 weeks. Her afternoon energy improved. By 6 weeks, her fasting glucose had dropped from pre-diabetic levels into the normal range. She told us she felt like someone had changed the batteries. Black rice is nutty, slightly chewy, and deeply satisfying. It takes about 35 to 40 minutes to cook, or you can use an electric rice cooker. Use it exactly as you would use white rice, as a side dish, in stir-fry, in soups, or as a base for grain bowls. Aim for ½ cup to 1 cup cooked per day. Grain number 3 to eat: barley. The cholesterol-crushing, gut-healing grain seniors are missing. If there is one grain that seniors consistently overlook and almost universally underestimate, it is barley. And that is a mistake, because the research on barley and senior health is some of the most compelling in the entire field of nutritional gerontology. Barley is the richest known dietary source of beta-glucan, a soluble fiber so powerful that it has received specific health claim approval from both the FDA and the European Food Safety Authority for its ability to lower cholesterol and regulate blood sugar. Beta-glucan works by forming a thick, gel-like substance in the gut that slows the absorption of glucose, prevents blood sugar spikes, traps bile acids, and pulls them out of the body, which forces the liver to convert cholesterol into new bile acids, effectively lowering LDL, and feeds the beneficial bacteria in the gut microbiome, producing short-chain fatty acids that reduce whole-body inflammation. That is a single fiber doing 4 extraordinarily important things simultaneously. And for seniors dealing with cholesterol, blood sugar, gut health, and inflammation all at once, which describes most of my patients, it is extraordinary. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that just 3 grams of barley beta-glucan per day, achievable with a single serving of cooked barley, reduced LDL cholesterol by an average of 15% in adults over 60. Another study in Nutrition Research found that a barley-based breakfast reduced post-meal blood glucose levels by 36% compared to a white bread breakfast, an effect that lasted not just for that meal, but carried forward to reduce the blood sugar response at the next meal as well. That persistent effect, the way one barley meal positively influences the next, is called the second meal effect, and it is one of the most remarkable properties in nutritional science. We had a patient named Valentino, a 70-year-old retired builder, who came to us with cholesterol levels that had resisted medication adjustments for 2 years. His doctor had discussed adding a second statin. He was also constipated, struggling with blood sugar, and carrying excess weight around his midsection, despite eating what he believed was a healthy diet. We introduced pearl barley as the cornerstone of his grain intake. Barley soup 4 days a week, barley mixed with vegetables as a side dish on other days. Within 6 weeks, his total cholesterol had dropped 18 points. Within 3 months, his blood sugar was significantly improved, and his doctor postponed the conversation about a second medication entirely. He lost 8 pounds without consciously restricting calories, and he told us, laughing, that the constipation problem was completely and utterly gone. Barley is affordable, widely available, and extraordinarily easy to cook. Use pearl or hulled barley. Add it to soups, stews, and salads. Cook a large batch and refrigerate it for the week. 1 cup of cooked barley provides approximately 4 to 6 grams of beta-glucan, enough to deliver clinically meaningful effects with a single daily serving. Grain number 2 to eat: buckwheat. The not actually a wheat grain that heals your blood vessels and joints. Here is something that surprises most people. Buckwheat is not wheat. It is not even a grain in the botanical sense. It is a seed, technically a pseudo-cereal, from a flowering plant related to rhubarb. It contains 0 gluten, and it is one of the most nutrient-complete plant foods on Earth. For seniors dealing with cardiovascular disease, joint pain, blood sugar issues, or gluten sensitivity, buckwheat may be the most powerful single food change you can make. Let me start with the compound that makes buckwheat genuinely extraordinary: rutin. Rutin is a bioflavonoid found in unusually high concentrations in buckwheat, and its effects on the aging cardiovascular system are remarkable. Rutin strengthens the walls of capillaries and small blood vessels, reducing their permeability and fragility. This is critical for seniors because capillary fragility underlies two of the most common and debilitating conditions after 60: hypertension-related vessel damage and age-related joint inflammation, where leaky capillaries allow inflammatory compounds to accumulate in joint tissue. A 2020 study published in the European Journal of Nutrition found that regular buckwheat consumption was associated with significantly lower blood pressure, reduced arterial stiffness, and improved microvascular function in adults over 65. A separate study in phytotherapy research found that routine supplementation, in amounts achievable through dietary buckwheat, reduced markers of joint inflammation in older adults with osteoarthritis within 8 weeks. Buckwheat is also one of the few plant foods classified as a complete protein, meaning it contains all 9 essential amino acids. For seniors at risk of muscle loss, which is virtually all seniors, adequate amino acid intake is critical for maintaining muscle mass, and buckwheat provides this in a gentle, easily digestible form. It has a low to moderate glycemic index of around 49 to 55, making it far gentler on blood sugar than any of the grains on our avoid list. One of our most memorable patients was Howard, a 79-year-old man who had been using a wheelchair part-time due to severe knee pain and weakness. His doctors described his condition as a combination of advanced osteoarthritis and sarcopenia, muscle loss. He was on 3 different anti-inflammatory medications, none of which were giving him satisfactory relief. His daughter brought him to us for a nutritional assessment. We completely overhauled his grain intake, placing buckwheat at the center of his diet. Buckwheat groats in his morning porridge, buckwheat flour used for pancakes on weekends, soba noodles made from buckwheat for his lunch. We combined this with other anti-inflammatory dietary changes. After 6 weeks, Howard walked into our office without the wheelchair. He used a cane, but his face told the story before he said a word. After 3 months, he was walking unassisted on good days. His inflammation markers had dropped significantly. His strength had measurably improved. His daughter sent us a photograph of him standing in his garden, the first time in 2 years he had been able to do that. Buckwheat is available as whole groats, flour, or soba noodles. Cook groats like oatmeal for a warm breakfast. Use buckwheat flour as a 1-to-1 replacement for white flour in pancakes, muffins, or baking. Choose soba noodles labeled 100% buckwheat. Aim for 1 to 2 servings per day. Grain number 1 to eat: quinoa, the complete superfood grain that rebuilds seniors from the inside out. For the number 1 grain every senior should eat daily, we turn to a seed, technically another pseudo-cereal, that has been cultivated in the Andes Mountains of South America for over 5,000 years. The Inca called it the mother of all grains. Modern nutritional science is beginning to understand why. Quinoa is the only plant food on Earth that is naturally a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids, has a low glycemic index of around 53, is completely gluten-free, contains significant amounts of fiber, iron, magnesium, zinc, folate, and manganese, and provides unique anti-inflammatory compounds, including quercetin and camphorol, 2 of the most studied flavonoids in aging research. That combination, in a single food at every meal, is virtually unmatched in the plant kingdom. Let's start with what matters most for seniors: the protein. After 60, the body becomes less efficient at using dietary protein to build and maintain muscle. This is called anabolic resistance. To overcome it, seniors need not just adequate protein, but high-quality, complete amino acid profiles at each meal. Quinoa delivers this without the saturated fat load of meat, the cholesterol concerns of eggs consumed daily, or the inflammation risk of some dairy products. A 2017 study published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that older adults who consumed quinoa regularly showed significantly better preservation of lean muscle mass over 6 months, compared to those eating equivalent calories from refined grains. The difference was attributed to quinoa's complete amino acid profile and its effect on muscle protein synthesis. Now let's talk about blood sugar. Quinoa's glycemic index of 53, compared to white rice at 73 to 87, makes it dramatically more stable for aging metabolism. But more than just the raw number, quinoa contains a compound called ecdysterone, which a 2021 study in Diabetologia found to significantly improve insulin sensitivity and lower blood glucose in older adults with impaired glucose regulation. This is not a marginal effect. Participants in that study showed improvements comparable to low-dose metformin, without a prescription, without side effects, just from regular quinoa consumption. And then there is the anti-inflammatory dimension. Quercetin and camphorol, the flavonoids in quinoa, have been shown across multiple studies to inhibit inflammatory enzymes, reduce oxidative stress in brain tissue, and protect against the kind of neuroinflammation that drives cognitive decline. A 2019 study in Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity found that quercetin-rich diets in older adults were associated with significantly lower rates of cognitive deterioration over 3 years. Our most inspiring quinoa story involves a patient named Rosie, a 76-year-old former school principal who had spent 2 years feeling, as she put it, like I was disappearing. Her energy was almost non-existent. Her memory was slipping. She had lost 12 pounds of muscle in the previous 18 months. Her diet was built almost entirely on white bread, pasta, and crackers, refined grains at every meal. We rebuilt her plate with quinoa as the foundation. Quinoa breakfast bowls with berries, quinoa salads for lunch, quinoa as the base for her evening meal in place of pasta or rice. We made no other major changes in the first month. By week 4, her energy had returned enough that she restarted a gentle walking routine she had abandoned a year earlier. By month 3, she had regained 4 pounds of lean muscle, confirmed by body composition testing. Her memory, she told us, felt like it had been wiped clean of the fog. She started writing again, something she had set aside, believing that chapter of her life was simply over. It was not over. She just needed the right fuel. How to use quinoa. Rinse it thoroughly before cooking to remove the natural saponin coating, which can taste bitter. Use a 2-to-1 ratio of water to quinoa. Cook for 15 minutes, fluff with a fork, and let it rest for 5 minutes. It works as a porridge in the morning with honey and cinnamon, as a salad base at lunch, or as a warm side dish in the evening. Aim for at least 1 cup of cooked quinoa per day. Now that you know the 4 grains to eliminate and the 4 to embrace, let me show you how to make this practical, because knowledge without a plan is just information. The transition does not need to be dramatic or immediate. In fact, a gradual approach tends to produce better long-term results, especially for seniors whose digestion may need time to adapt to higher fiber whole grains. Here is a gentle 3-week transition framework. In week 1, eliminate the single worst offender, refined white flour, and replace it with buckwheat flour for baking and quinoa as your primary grain at 1 meal per day. This alone will reduce your blood sugar spikes, improve gut health, and begin reducing inflammation. In week 2, remove white rice and replace it with black rice. The cooking method is identical, the flavor is richer, and the nutritional difference is enormous. In week 3, begin incorporating barley into your soups and salads at least 4 days per week, and address corn by reading labels and eliminating packaged products that list corn flour or corn syrup. By the end of 3 weeks, your grain intake will have been completely transformed, without your meals feeling dramatically different. The flavors are satisfying, the textures are rich, and what is happening inside your body at the cellular, vascular, and neurological level will, over time, reflect that change in ways you will genuinely feel. Some practical notes. Always pair whole grains with protein and healthy fat at the same meal. This further reduces glycemic impact and improves absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. Hydrate adequately. Higher fiber grains require more water to move efficiently through your gut, and if you experience initial bloating when increasing whole grain intake, start with smaller portions and build up gradually over 2 to 3 weeks. Your microbiome needs time to adapt, and it will. If you have stayed with me through this entire video, I want to say something important to you. It is not too late. I know how it feels to have eaten the same foods for decades, to have followed the advice you were given, to have done what seemed right, and still find yourself struggling with fatigue, joint pain, sluggish thinking, and a body that feels like it is working against you. You were not failing. You were eating the wrong fuel, and that is fixable. I have watched patients rebuild themselves in their 70s. I have seen joint inflammation quiet down, blood sugar normalize, memory sharpen, and energy return in people who had accepted decline as their permanent reality. Not because of a miracle drug, because of a change in what they put on their plate every single day. Grains are at the center of most people's diets. That means the grains you choose either quietly accelerate your decline or actively support your recovery. There is very little middle ground. You now know which side each grain falls on, and you have a clear, simple path forward. Start today. Not a perfect overhaul, just one swap. Replace your white bread with buckwheat toast this week. Cook black rice instead of white rice at dinner. Add barley to your next soup. Make a quinoa bowl for breakfast on Saturday morning. One change, 1 week. See what shifts. Because your health is not fixed. It is not locked in place. It is responding right now to every decision you make. And the decisions you make starting today can genuinely change the trajectory of the years ahead. We want to hear from you. Have you tried any of these grains? Which one are you most excited to try first? Leave a comment. We read every single one, and we love hearing your stories because your stories are the reason we do this work. If this video gave you something useful, a new idea, a moment of hope, a concrete step you can take, please share it with someone you care about, a spouse, a sibling, a friend who has been struggling and could use a reason to try something new. Because after 60, your health is not a luxury. It is the foundation for everything else, for the relationships, the experiences, the mornings that feel good, the evenings you want to be present for. You deserve that foundation, and it starts with what you put on your plate. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.